All right, we will call our Thursday, June 19th, El Paso County Planning Commission meeting to order. We've got a few different ways of doing things today, but first of all, let me get to our voting folks. Everyone's going to vote today. Mr. Markowitz, Mr. Smith, Mr. Trowbridge, Ms. Jack, Mr. Whitney, Mr. Byers, Mr. Moraes, and myself. I'm Jay Carlson. I'm the chairman of the Planning Commission. Let's go right to report items.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Megan Harrington, Planning Director. The only report item I would have for you would be at the July Planning Commission meeting. We will have Clarion and Associates, the consultant working on the Land Development Code update. They will be here to give you a overview summary of the work done to date on Module 1, which is the first piece of the draft that will be released, and that draft will be released to the public here at a point in July before they kind of brief you on that. And so that will be coming to you at the July meeting. I will ask Mr. Kilgore if he has anything to add. Thank you.
And we've just got one meeting in July, is that right?
Yes.
Don't I recall there was some summertime?
Yes, we have one meeting in July. It's the
Great, thanks.
17th.
Thank you. All right. Now's the time we would,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Justin, sorry.
I have one thing for you, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry. You have a laydown on, everyone has a laydown actually for Colorado Springs Utilities. I would just ask that if anyone is interested in attending that, if you would send an email to PCD Hearings and let the clerk know. That way she can coordinate. If there's more than one or two of you that want to go, then she can coordinate with the city on that.
All right.
Thank
Great.
you, sir.
Thank you. All right, this is a time when we allow the public to come up and speak. If there's anybody who'd like to speak on a topic that's not on our agenda today, is there anybody who'd like to talk? See any? So we'll move ahead. To our consent items, I understand there's a change on agenda item 3B. You want to address that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are asking for a continuance at the request of the applicant for July 17th on that item, sir, to
Okay.
work out some water issues.
All right. Do we need to approve that, or?
Yes, sir. I would need a full vote
All
on
right,
that, sir.
I'd entertain a motion to,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Mr. Trowbridge.
I do have a question before we do a motion.
Yes.
Would it be better to, instead of doing it to a date certain, can we do an event or an item certain type? Maybe that's a question for the county attorney. But since you seem to be having issues, would it be better to defer this until the water issue is cleared and then schedule it after that?
That may actually be a possibility. However, it is easier for the advertisement and the notification of citizens to postpone it to a date certain. That way it's on the public record, and it doesn't have to be re-advertised.
Okay, that's fine. I was just asking the question.
Record, an item may be continued for up to 180 days. Let me try that again.
There you go.
Good morning. For the record, Erica Keach from the County Attorney's Office. An item may be continued up to 180 days, after which it's considered withdrawn if it has not been moved upon. And just also so everyone knows, an item can only be continued 2 times, and after the second continuance, the commission must take action to either approve or deny it. So if we do want to move for a date certain, it needs to be within that 180-day period. And when it is set, action will need to be taken.
Okay.
They're asking for July 17th. Does that fall within the 180 days?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes,
All
sir,
right.
it does.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to agree to this continuance.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Trowbridge.
Regarding agenda item 3B, file number VR235, the vacation and replat for Peyton Ranches, filing number 1A, I would move that we defer this item until July 17th.
Thank you.
Second. Down here.
Who seconded that? All right, Moraes, thanks. Any discussion? Take the vote. Mr. Markowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Trowbridge.
Aye.
Ms. Jack,
Aye.
Mr. Whitney,
Aye.
Mr. Byers.
Aye.
Mr. Moraes.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so agenda item 3B is approved to be continued until July 17th.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Trowbridge.
perhaps I missed it. Did we do the minutes?
No, we didn't. Thank you. Regarding the minutes from our last meeting, any changes or to those? Anybody see any? All right, we'll deem those approved as submitted. Thank you. All right, move on to our regular item, agenda item 5A, file number SKP 242, sketch plan Flying Horse East Phase 1.
Before we get started, I did want to request permission from the chair to go a little bit out of order after we have completed the staff presentation. I believe we have the Deputy Base Commander from Schriever Space Force Base that has requested to speak as a neutral party, and I would request from the chair that we could do that between staff and applicant presentations if that's possible.
You bet, that's just fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So again, for the record, this is case number SKP 242 for the Flying Horse East Phase 1 sketch plan. For the record, my name is Ryan Hauser. I'm the principal planner with El Paso County Planning Community Development. With Department of Public Works, we have Brett Diltz, senior engineer. To those watching remotely, if you have not provided a name and phone number and you'd like to speak on this item, please email that information to pcdhearings@elpasoco.com. So this is our standard hearing procedure, and again, as we had just agreed upon, we'll take a bit of a break between the staff and applicant presentations so the Deputy Base Commander can speak, and then after the staff presentation, applicant presentation, we'll have public comment from the citizens in favor and against, applicant rebuttal, final question, and then the final decision. Obviously, this should probably say Planning Commission. It says Board of County Commissioners, but Planning Commission will not be making a decision today. You'll be making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The request before you today is a request for a sketch plan for Flying Horse Land Company. It's about 1,800 square feet, or 1,800 acres total land area, consisting of about 818 acres of residential uses, 31 acres of commercial, about 90 acres for a school site, and then the remainder of the land is designated as mixed use, right-of-way, parks and open space and things of that nature. Total potential build-out, if for a maximum contemplated under these parameters, would be about 5,000 residential dwelling units across the 1,800 acres, with a potential maximum gross density of 6 units per acre. And we'll kind of get into a little bit more detail when I pull up the plan. Currently, the property is split zoned with a variety of zoning districts, RR5, CR, CC, RS 5000, and limited industrial. Here's the criteria of approval for a sketch plan. I won't dwell on this slide too long, but I do want to state a few things for the record regarding the criteria of approval. This is the criteria that the case is considered against. So when a decision is made or a recommendation from this body is made, this is the criteria that is being considered. You'll notice it states general conformance with the master plan, conformance with the requirements of the code, compatible with existing and proposed land uses within and adjacent to the sketch plan area. And I think something else that's important to point out is that we're not making a formal finding of water sufficiency at this stage. Since this is a sketch plan, this is more of a conceptual level plan, so we're making a finding of probable compliance with the water supply. Many of the things that we're considering today are relatively conceptual in nature, and if this plan was approved by the board at a later date, it would then enable the applicants to come in and submit for rezone applications and more specific preliminary plan subdivision applications where we would get into the more specifics of what they're actually proposing to do. So we can come back to this slide at any time if any of the planning commission members or anyone from the public needs the criteria to be brought back up. Here's a map of the proposed sketch plan. You'll notice they are proposing a variety of different residential densities. So when I had said earlier the maximum gross density potential, that's kind of a summation of the whole concept here. They're proposing some areas for what they're calling suburban low density residential, some areas for medium, and some that are high. And there is a full analysis of what that entails in the staff report. It's kind of hard to read on the slide here exactly what those densities are. But again, this is something that we kind of play at it at a conceptual level now, and then they'll come back later if they wanted to do a PUD or conventional zoning to actually implement the exact density or the exact number of units per acre that they want to do at a later time. You'll also notice something else that I want to point out. They do have a rather large wetland area that runs through the property, and that at this point is being proposed to remain as untouched open space corridor that runs through the property. That's the big green line that runs through the property. And then on the south side, they've designated that gray area as a mixed use designation that could incorporate commercial uses and industrial uses. And then they're providing about 100 or 150 foot open space buffer on the south side where you'll see it's adjacent to the Schriever Space Force base property. The reason that I wanted to mention the specific criteria of approval that the proposal is compatible with the surrounding zoning districts and the surrounding land uses in the area, I think it becomes evident when looking at the zoning map. The property is almost entirely surrounded by RR5, rural residential, 5-acre minimum lot size. They are proposing, if I could go back, a few commercial nodes on the south side of Highway 94 here, one at the corner of Enoch and Highway 94, and then one about 2/3 east on the east side of their property. That would be consistent with other proposals that we've seen in the county. You can tell on the zoning map. We do have certain commercial nodes running along the south side of Highway 94. That is something that is identified in the master plan. It's identified in several components of the master plan as an appropriate development pattern along Highway 94. A few things that I apologize I neglected to include in this staff report and in the presentation, but I did think it was pertinent to mention as far as the analysis of the relationship this property has to the surrounding zoning district. I'd also like to apologize. There's no scale on this map, so you can't really tell how big anything is, but for reference, the property is about 2 miles wide. So from one end to the other, it's approximately 2 miles. The closest comparable level of density to what's being proposed here, you'll notice this pink on the right of the screen here that says PUD. That's the Mayberry development that you all may be familiar with. That property is approximately 4 miles to the east of this proposed development. And then just to get your bearings on the other comparable developments in the area, this property sits about 8.5 miles east of the Cimarron Hills area. So you can see the Colorado Springs boundary here. If you go even further to the west, you'll find Cimarron Hills, which is generally urban level density. It's about 7.5 miles south of Falcon and about 7 miles northeast of Lorson Ranch, which is just a little bit further down there. So I just felt that that was pertinent to bring up as we're talking about density in the area, density of the proposed development, the relationship that the proposal has to the surrounding area. And then obviously immediately to the south, you have Schriever Space Force Base, and then the vast majority of the property in the area is zoned either RR5 for 5 lot minimum lot size, or A35, which is a 35 acre minimum lot size. With regards to the master plan, there are quite a few components of the master plan that are relevant to this proposal. The place type, since this is adjacent to a military installation, it is technically located within the two place types. So it is within the suburban residential place type, but it is also lying within the 2-mile military reservation buffer, so that place type would also apply to this proposal. The suburban residential place type, I believe, recommends up to 5 units per acre as a maximum recommended density, and I would stress the word recommended in the master plan. Those urban medium high density and urban high density residential areas that I had referenced earlier that are listed on the sketch plan could allow certain pockets of development to go up to 8 and 14 units per acre, which would be a little bit higher than what the place type actually recommends. And then that also ties back to the aspect that I had mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, that if you were to kind of add everything up over the entire residential proposed area, it would wind up with a gross density of about 6 units per acre, which would just be a little bit over the recommendation in the master plan for the place type. The military place type, conversely, does emphasize the importance of compatible use transitions and buffers, and that's probably the most important component of the military place type. Military place type does list a few additional land uses that it recommends that are generally higher density than what you would normally see in a suburban area. However, the military place type does not actually identify a maximum recommended residential density. The sketch plan that's been provided today doesn't provide any specific buffers along the base boundary aside from that 100 and 150 foot strip of land on the south side. And the base has provided several comment letters to the county. I don't really want to speak on behalf of the base, but it is my understanding that that could be a point of concern, that perhaps some of the development might be encroaching a little too close, but that's something that I would recommend that we let the base speak to and the applicant speak to. With regards to the area of change, moving on from the place types to the area of change, the proposal is in the new development area of change, and pretty much everything that's being proposed in the sketch plan would align with that area of change, which emphasizes the idea that the area could be significantly transformed in character, which is something that would likely happen if this development were to go through and be approved and proceed with the future components. It's also located in the potential areas for annexation key area. We did reach out to the city. The city didn't provide any comment or provide any interest in annexing this property at this time. However, the point to note is that properties that are generally located in this key area, we do tend to see trending more towards urban level development and the type of development that is proposed in this project. This property is also located in a designated suburban residential priority development area due to the proximity to Schriever. There's no analysis on this slide. These bullet points are copied and pasted from the master plan. These are the recommendations that the master plan has for this priority development area. I bolded the second one because I thought that was more pertinent to mention. It says efficient use of land helps preserve open space and reduce impacts on the critical missions being performed at Schriever and adjacent rural areas. I think the proposal to incorporate the floodplain wetland area as a no-build open space area is great. It helps to facilitate those recommendations. Again, like I said, the specific relationship that the project has to Schriever, I believe, is something that I don't think is appropriate for the county to speak to, and something that I think we can have a discussion on later in the presentation. I would also like to state, too, for the record here, it says additional commercial uses should be developed at the Highway 94 and Enoch Road intersection, which is something that's identified on the plan. So there are components that kind of run both ways with regards to the master plan in this project, where there are some components that line up perfectly with the master plan and some that might be a little bit more gray. So I do want to remind the Planning Commission that when we are talking about the master plan, projects aren't necessarily going to align with 100% of everything in the master plan. We're mostly just looking for a general conformance with the goals and objectives and components of the master plan. So hopefully that was confusing for you all, and I'm sure you all have some questions at some point. But before we kind of get to the end of the staff presentation, I did want to invite our engineer up to discuss the drainage and transportation
Let me
components.
ask you one question before you leave. That when you mentioned there was, I think you said there's overall 6 units per acre. Is that taking the 1,800 acres and dividing it by the number of homes, or
More or less. I think I
the
did.
applicant's shaking his head no?
I think I did the 800 acres. So I
many?
took all of the residential land that they're proposing for residential, and then took the total potential number of units to
So
come
it does
up
not
with that.
include parks and the drainage
No.
and the commercial?
No,
and
but
all
it
that stuff?
also doesn't include open space requirements we might have,
Yeah.
roads that they're going to put in, things like that. So it's kind of intended to be, it's a higher number than what we'll wind up actually seeing.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Trowbridge.
And Ryan, maybe you can come back and talk about this, but I did want to ask about you pointed out earlier, there's a lot of different zoning that's existing across this property. And I was wondering if you could, or as part of your review, did you review how some of that zoning came to be? Because there was a big chunk of it that's I-2, a lot of it is commercial, and half of it's residential, either RS 5000 or RR5. So a lot of different proposed uses in there. I was most curious though about what the I-2 was all about. If you have any of that information, I'd be interested in knowing about that.
I can have Brett come up and talk about the drainage and transportation.
Yeah, no,
and
that's fine.
I'll get you the answer once
Okay,
he's done with
thank
his
you.
part. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, Brett Diltz, El Paso County Engineering. For the drainage on this site does drain to 3 of the drainage basins in the county. Those are the Livestock Company, the Drennan Basin, and the Upper East Chico. The Livestock Company and the Upper East Chico are both fee-paying basins, and those fees will be due at time of final plat. There is a FEMA Zone A floodplain that crosses the site that Ryan has talked about a few different times, and it generally runs from the northwest to the southeast across the site and continues on. There'll be 15 full spectrum ponds proposed with this site currently to help manage the floodwater or the stormwater that flows across this site. And a grading and erosion control plan are not required at sketch plan, but will be submitted with later submissions at preliminary plan and so on. Any questions on the drainage?
Any questions? Yes. Markowitz.
Earlier, it was said that the wetlands would be untouched. So obviously, you're going to have to touch land on either side when you're doing these detentions. But are you doing anything in improvement of the channel? I mean, is it like from the edge of the property to the edge of the property?
I'll let
Is there
the
going to be?
applicant speak to that more, but there will be some bridges that cross it just for the roadways that are proposed.
But but like actually in the channel, whether it is flood mitigation, trying to slow the flow down when it's high, is there going to be anything, or is the plan just to leave the channel completely natural and just enhance the areas around it with the detention ponds?
Again, I'll let the applicant and developer speak to those questions.
Thank you.
They can answer those far better than I can.
Other questions? Thank you.
For the transportation section, the development will be subject to El Paso County road impact fees when we get to those stages. The master traffic impact study that was provided for this development does propose about 39,000 average daily trips. Upon full build-out, additional signals will be required at Highway 94 intersection with Slocum and Drake. And then on Enoch Road, they're proposing 2 access points, both of which will be signalized. They'll be monitored as we move forward for when those signals are required, but that is suggested per the traffic impact study. And also from the TIS, both Highway 94 and Enoch Road are recommended to be improved to 4-lane throughways by the year 2030.
All righty. Any other questions? Thank you.
And before I proceed, I do have an answer for Mr. Trowbridge's question. And I, again, apologize. This probably would have been good information to include in the staff report. I'm going to go back to the zoning map. So this entire commercial industrial area was rezoned in 1984 to support an idea for a business park, industrial park in the area that basically never went anywhere after they rezoned it. So it's been zoned like this since 1984, and this is the first new development proposal that we've gotten on this property since then. So
Great. Thank you very
interesting.
much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, I just have down here to the right.
Thanks. Mr. Moran,
Just one follow-on question. Is that I-2, is that part of this whole property? It was just a portion of it with a buffer of RR5? Or was it at one point 2 different properties that kind of got replatted as one? If you don't know, it's not a huge deal. I'm just curious at this point.
I'm not really sure,
Okay.
if I'm going to be honest.
Okay, that's fine. I appreciate it.
So just to finish off the staff presentation, our department notified 36 adjoining property owners on June 5th. We did not receive any formal written responses from any of the citizens for the posting, and at the applicant's proposal, we don't yet have a Board of County Commissioners hearing date planned. So when you do make a recommendation, it's just going to be to the Board of County Commissioners when we do schedule that. We will send out another set of notices, and we will produce new flyers with the Board of County Commissioners date on that when that date is locked down. But I wanted to state that for the record because I know once we get to the end, we usually have a discussion on when the item is going to the board. So at this time, I would like to invite up the base commander to speak, and then once he's completed, we can invite the applicant up for their presentation if
great.
needed.
Thank you. Hello. Yes.
Right, good morning.
Morning.
Since I tend to be a little lengthy, my team wrote my notes to ensure that I comply with my 3 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen and members of the Planning Commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of Schriever Space Force Base in regards to the Flying Horse East sketch plan. I am Colonel David Berrios. I am the Deputy Commander of Space Base Delta 41, which got instituted yesterday. Right, so we were part of the Schriever, Peterson, Cheyenne Mountain team, and now we are our own independent installation. So Space Base Delta 41 is headquartered at Schriever Space Force Base. Today, I would like to highlight some of the key points previously articulated in memos to El Paso County on 28 January and 16 May, as well as points from a letter that Colonel Clark, the SBD 1 commander, sent on 21 May this year. As a federal entity, Schriever cannot and does not support or oppose any specific development of our installation. The purpose of me being here today is to provide military perspective and technical comments of the proposed FHE development, but not to offer any particular opinion. Additionally, per Colorado Revised Statute 29-20-105.6, military installations are afforded the opportunity to review and provide technical input on development proposals within 2 miles of the installation. Schriever is strategically placed in a rural setting to ensure uninterrupted horizon-to-horizon satellite tracking in a location with low electromagnetic interference, separated from dense and urban development. The Schriever missions are sensitive to external factors. The Space Force continues to technologically evolve and grow, and it is our duty to ensure the long-term viability of these critical mission sets. With that being said, today I would like to highlight 2 key points and questions. The first one is the proposed mixed-use land use consistent with the El Paso County Master Plan? While it is understood that El Paso County Master Plan serves as a general guideline, it is the basis of our expectation for growth near Schriever, and as we helped develop the plan many years ago. The mixed-use land use proposed is not shown as either primary or supporting land use for either the suburban or military place types, as we would like to better understand this type of development in context with the master plan. The second point is regarding the protective easements surrounding Schriever Space Force Base. We request clarification if the property development within the easement 101E-2 will maintain, and I think that was a question asked, will maintain the RR5 zoning with a maximum of 50,000 square feet of structure covering the ground, or if the landowner will have the right to subdivide their land into smaller parcels. Although we do not require immediate answers to these questions, we believe it is essential to address these points to ensure transparency in the decision-making process. Further technical comments were provided in our memos, but these are the 2 main points I would like to highlight today for your consideration. Finally, I would like to offer the information that Schriever is developing a space operations installation compatible use study. When complete, this study will be available to adjacent municipalities desiring to better understand the specific types of interference, both to the installation and to the landowner. We are committed to ensuring the U.S. national security interests on Schriever are maintained by providing the required data to our neighbors. But please realize that this will take us some time to complete. I would request a commitment from the developer to continue to work together with the base to ensure the land use remain compatible. I look forward to hearing responses to my specific questions and having future collaboration with the county and the developer to ensure vitality of the Schriever missions. If the committee has any questions beyond what I offer here, I'm happy to receive those questions and follow up with you at a later time. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate your input and your willingness to come before us.
Absolutely.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Markowitz.
Thank you for your service, sir. You mentioned a study on compatibility around the perimeter of your base, or I would imagine it's just a bigger study, not specifically Schriever, it's just what things are compatible around a base. Is that correct? Or is it specifically Schriever?
So this specific study is similar to what we do on Air Force bases for our airfield. The Space Force has never developed a study of this type.
Okay.
So this one will be specific to Schriever and our surrounding areas, but I do expect that to become a benchmark for other Space Force bases to follow.
And you mentioned it's obviously not completed. Do you have any approximate timetable for completion of this so that we can see really? I would prefer to have this in hand before making this type of decision. I mean, if you're going to be saying, okay, these uses are acceptable, these uses are not, and then you go into a sketch plan and say, okay, how can we fit these things together? So I would prefer to see that study before voting on something like this. So do you have an estimate?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. We have never made this type of study. Our commitment is to get funding for this project this year. That's what we are talking through our Space Operations Command and higher Space Force headquarters. Next year, that project, if funded this at the end of this fiscal year, will be in effect. We'll develop the criteria to understand. So a very aggressive timeline would be 2 years.
Okay.
So I don't want to not be transparent about the fact that I currently do not have the funding for it, but I do think it will be funded this year. Because the Space Force community really need this kind of studies to really be better neighbors. So I have expectation that it will be funded at the end of the year. We'll enter the contract negotiations for next, and then the results will be really late, fiscal year 26.
Just based on your experience, obviously the study hasn't been done, but obviously there's about a third of this property that's adjacent to Schriever, and in the sketch plan, it's listed as mixed use. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to accomplish mixed use where you're driving through the neighborhoods to get to it, because I'm assuming there's no entrance to this property from the north side of your base. There's not going to be any cross traffic there.
Right.
If this were to go forward and we're looking at the sketch plan, the area in gray that's adjacent to Space Force, to Schriever, are there uses that you would think, okay, our compromise would be, okay, in this area, we would accept certain things?
Absolutely, and that's what we're trying to get to with this study, right? So right now, we are very jealous on the Space Force to maintain that buffer, right? That we graciously had the opportunity to provide comments anything within 2 miles. My perception would be that all it says is we need collaboration. It doesn't say that it's strictly a 2-mile buffer. So I do expect that within the first half a mile, there will be this type of uses that we would like. At a mile buffer, there will be these other type of structures. And that's what we're trying to do this study so that we can really be good partners. Because right now, I know I'm in a very interesting position in which I'm asking for a buffer, but I don't have the technical data to support why. So I fully understand my position. And that's what we're trying to complete this study so that then we can truly collaborate on what compatible uses benefit the town, that benefit the military interests. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Whitney.
Just real quick, Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Absolutely.
Following up on that question or those questions, I take it, though, your principal focus is the two things you're worried about, horizon-to-horizon satellite tracking and minimal electromagnetic interference.
Absolutely.
Those are the two things you're worried about.
Right. I would like to point out that, I'm an Air Force guy, right, representing the Space Force interests. So hopefully I don't get my bosses in trouble. But what I would like to offer is that 6 years ago, we didn't have a dedicated Space Force, and we didn't understand the technologies that are rapidly evolving. So this is where we're here today to ask for that timeline, because we know that we owe you better, but we also don't know what other things will come along. A few years ago, it was all line of sight. Now with the density of space assets, we are looking at all different angles that before we didn't concern ourselves with.
And for the record, as I recall, Schriever was put out in the middle of nowhere on purpose for exactly these reasons, I take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll try not to divulge too much, but the Space Force enterprise runs through Schriever, right? So other bases that are Space Force designated, they have some component of Space Force warfighting capability. We own more than half of that at Schriever.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Great. Other questions? I had one. You mentioned you're interested in maintaining the RR5 zoning, if you will, around the base. Is that in your mind right now? Is that the 2-mile radius? Is that kind of what you're alluding to there?
Today, that is it.
Okay.
Why when we perform the study, hopefully we can be better at allowing for the right growth, right? But today, with the information I have, that's that would be a correct statement.
Great. And then another question of mine is regarding the electromagnetic interference and whatnot. Does the residential development affect that kind of thing?
I don't believe small structures would affect that, right? But some points to consider, right? Is if we increase the density of residential units, we will want to increase this cell phone tower.
Yeah.
That will create issues for both the company and us. Just simple objects like drones that we really don't like flying over our base. The closer folks are, the more toys will be available. There's just a bunch of many other issues that just get exasperated with density.
Sure. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Just,
Maurice.
just to point out, as of today, the zoning map exists where there's I-2 and there's, commercial properties there. So a property owner could, at this point, build that out because
Absolutely.
they're allowed that. Or just to realize, and I'm just pointing that out for you and for the rest of the crowd to understand.
No, absolutely. Understand.
Great. Thanks. Thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much for your time and consideration.
All right. Applicant, thank you.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. My name is Blaine Perkins. I'm the Planning and Landscape Architecture Group Lead for HR Green, a local firm here in town. And here with us also today is an owner representative with the developer, Drew Balsick from Flying Horse Land Company, as well as Brandon Wilson with SM Rocha to speak more directly to the traffic-related items as part of the sketch plan. Before I get too far a little bit into the presentation, I do just want to let everyone know that we do have some specific items as it relates to Streever and their boundaries around our site and buffers that we will get into to hopefully provide a little bit more clarity to some of the questions that you've all asked just now to Colonel Barrios. The intended utility providers for the Flying Horse East sketch plan would be getting water and wastewater services through the Cherokee Metropolitan District. To date, we do have a letter of intent and a will serve letter of outlining general terms with the Cherokee Metro District and our developer on how that can be accomplished at a later date if this were to move forward. And again, we can get into some more of that later on. Currently, we do have electrical easements and gas easements along Highway 94 already obtained on the property and have gotten will serve letters from both Black Hills and Electric will serves from MBA. As mentioned, we are here before you today to get a recommendation for the Board of County Commissioners on a sketch plan for the Flying Horse East development. By nature, I did just want to allude to, because I know Mr. Hauser had kind of talked through some of the different specifics, the intent with our current design and the decisions we have made currently. It would be a PUD development, so you could expect at a later date we would be looking to do PUD preliminary plans and then ultimately subdivision plans as well. To the left is a quick breakdown, kind of simplifying the land use summary that we'll look at later on in the slide deck with the specifics of what we're proposing within this area. And then also in this component, I did just want to kind of touch on the discussion earlier in terms of the gross density that Mr. Hauser had alluded to in his presentation. It's the ever-evolving, changing door of what's gross density and what's considered net density. He is not incorrect in his math at all. What he had done was taken the total conglomerate residential acreage and divided it by the number of units. Through the lens I look at, I would actually take the total number of units and do it divided by the whole land acreage in total for a gross density. Based on my quick math, that would basically be in a range from the smallest to the lowest of about 1.7 DUs to the acre to 2.6 DUs to the acre. I think we're all aware of kind of where this is located just based on some of the prior discussions, but I did just want to spend a little bit of time on this slide to kind of outline some of the history and land purchases from Flying Horse Land on this property. In total, just roughly 4,600 acres, more or less, which is identified in that black boundary line, was purchased by Flying Horse Land Company LLC in 2019. Ever since the purchase of that land, numerous different planning efforts have been taking place internally to decide the best route to move forward with an application process. The initial considerations made on this property were to start speaking with the city of Colorado Springs on a potential annexation. That process lasted about 1 to 2 years. And after numerous coordination meetings with city planning at that time, with the City of Colorado Springs Planning and Colorado Springs Utility, we basically made an internal decision that probably wasn't the most practical or feasible route and to pursue an application. And then we decided to pivot and figure out ways we can work within the existing parameters of the property today and propose something that can work through the El Paso County planning process. So again, today we're just here for the 1,800 acres, which we have identified as phase 1, but that does just kind of give you a bigger picture. Another important component to this slide that I did want to highlight, because it'll come up in terms of our preliminary designs that we've been working on currently with Cherokee Metropolitan District on getting water and wastewater services here. It just kind of sets the stage for some of those items later. As we dive into some of the El Paso County master plan components in regards to showing compliance with what we have proposed for this Flying Course East sketch plan, I did just want to touch on a couple of different items, and I know Mr. Hauser had covered some of these, so I'll try to bring up some different components that we had actually considered when laying this out. But as he had mentioned, this is one of 2 areas within unincorporated El Paso County that is subject to 2 different place types. The place type is by definition in the El Paso County Master Plan the basis for long-range planning efforts. So exactly what we're here before you today. A sketch plan, in my professional opinion, is considered a long-range planning effort. And so that is why we had kind of structured this PowerPoint in a way to touch on this first, as we see this as a very vital component of the master plan to make sure we're conforming with. Within those are identified a number of different primary and supporting land uses. I know Colonel Barrios just kind of spoke directly about whether or not the mixed use is actually compliant with these place types. We feel as if it is. The whole goal, and we can get into in just a little bit, is for the mixed use is not to dovetail ourselves into one specific use. With ever-changing market trends, things changing, the county's acknowledgement that we need to find different ways to provide greater flexibility. And our hope is actually by designating it as mixed use gives us the opportunity to work with them to find something that is feasible and practical in that area. One specific as well, obviously with the suburban place type, there's single family detached is the single primary land use. The next slide will get into some of the military, but you'll see kind of a cross pattern of switching between very consistent land uses in both of those and what would be deemed primary and supporting. The suburban place type goes on to explain that specifically for single family detached within this place type, no lot size should be greater than 2.5 acres, and a max density range should never exceed 5 dwelling units to the acre. I want to mention that just as we set up and get ready to get into the sketch plan on how that influenced some of the decisions we made from land use. Second, again, and just again wanted to highlight some of the different supporting and primary land uses. There's obviously a bigger list associated with the military, but our hope, again, kind of going back to the mixed use, is office could be allowed within that mixed use, additional military operations could be allowed, restaurant, commercial services, entertainment, without characterizing that piece of land as a straight zone, and then that's all we have left to do or work within at a later date. The next part of the master plan I'd like to touch on is the area of change map. I won't spend too much time on this map. Did just want to highlight that this is categorized as new development, which we can anticipate significant changes. The majority of these areas identified, and you can actually even see this is the same place type, or I'm sorry, area of change associated with the other portions of Flying Course to the east of us as well. But we can expect significant transformed rural agricultural land and seed development in these areas. And then this kind of sets up the next other component or key component of the master plan in terms of priority development areas. The El Paso County Master Plan has a number of priority development areas. This is one of them. It's number 5, and it is the Schriever Air Force Base. And again, listed over there left are direct items listed within this part of the master plan. And again, it kind of recompounds prioritizing suburban development using efficient land uses to help preserve open space, which we feel like we have done, but as well as setting up the county to prioritize and work in conjunction with us as the developer to prioritize road construction, road improvements, so that we do not mitigate any critical missions or capacity at the base today. The final component of the El Paso County Master Plan I did just want to touch on briefly, and it may not be a part of very many applications, but I did want to bring it up as a consideration. Within the Economic Development Chapter 5, they do, the El Paso County recognizes and acknowledges that supporting mixed-use development is a net benefit not only for the end developer, but for the future residents and the county as a whole. Ms. Harrington gave you guys an update right before we commenced this part of the presentation on the LDC update. The intent with us, and this is the first introduction of the sketch plan where you can actually see the graphic on our slide, is they are looking at finding different flexible zone districts to incorporate in that LDC. Currently, it's in the draft form now. Some key stakeholders within the city on the consultant side have had a chance, me being one of them, to look at that and kind of look through it. And so that helped influence us, knowing that we're years away from developing parts of this and even parts adjacent to Schriever, trying to set this initial plan up and framework plan to start conforming to some future updates that are going to be made in that land development code. On May 1st, we held a voluntary neighborhood meeting. Based on the sign-in sheet that we had, we estimated roughly 30 plus nearby residents. Almost all that notified showed up, as well as Schriever Space Force personnel and then El Paso County Planning Department as well. We had it from 6 to 8 p.m. and throughout that 2 hours, different floods of groups came in. It worked out nice just to kind of do an open house format, be able to speak directly to small groups of individuals and answer their questions and concerns directly. Overall, it's my personal opinion that the meeting went very well. It gave a lot of insight, helped provide clarity to nearby residents on different items that they may or may not understand, and kind of just educate them on what we're looking to do with this piece of property. One of the other components that was brought up quite a few was the timing of development. And again, we're understanding that we're quite a ways away from actually being able to do any vertical construction on this property. If it were to move forward, we have a lot of horizontal work to do with Cherokee Metropolitan District to make that feasible. And so we're anticipating it will be today many years before there would ever be a home, if it were approved, actually constructed on the property today. One of the other main items that they did bring up were the existing traffic conditions on Highway 94. And I can't refute anything that they had to say, having driven on 94 to and from this parcel throughout this application. I can completely understand with it being a 65-mile-an-hour posted speed limit, truck traffic. What we tried to reiterate to them, and what we've also tried to communicate to the Schriever Space Force personnel folks, is that our intent and our hope is this project would actually be a catalyst to start helping identify and understand how we can improve those road conditions today, because we all recognize that it is not safe, it's not working well. But this can be a way to start identifying that with Colorado Department of Transportation as well as El Paso County Transportation staff. So here is the proposed sketch plan in its entirety. I kind of wanted to start basically on the south side of the property and work our way internal into the north. I think we've spoken a lot already kind of on the mixed use and what we've kind of identified there. To the west, or to the east of us, I'm sorry, we do have the existing Rolling Hills Ranch Estates subdivision, which is RR5, 5-acre lots. When assessing and working through this plan, we determined that it would be most appropriate to put the lowest intense residential as a land use transition from those 5-acre lots along that boundary, and then from east to west, start to integrate higher levels of intensity with development and residential development. Moving just to the west of there, you can kind of see the primary core in a darker yellow is identified as medium density. Going back to some of those items we covered on the suburban place type, I did just want to highlight that if you look at the density range within there, it was purposely set at a max of 4.99 dwelling units to the acre so that we were not going to be impeding anything outlined within that suburban place type. I also want to mention at this stage that because it is majority a suburban place type with primary and supporting land uses, that is also why the medium density encompasses the majority of the proposed residential within this plan. If you actually add up the low, medium, high, and high together, they are still less than that. And so we feel that this plan and this approach conforms with that, acknowledges that supporting can be in there, but it should never outweigh the actual suburban place type itself or land use. Continuing to the west, we start to intensify with medium high density and then ultimately one parcel of urban high density in that northwest corner. Going back to some of the strategies and goals of the priority development area of Schriever, we did locate the commercial center right there at the hard corner of South Enoch and Highway 94, as well as an auxiliary commercial out parcel further to the east, adjacent to what we believe would be a good spot for a future school site to serve this community and nearby residents. In summary, I know, Mr. Markowitz, you had kind of asked Mr. Diltz about the drainage way and what our intent and kind of is right now. He did mention that we obviously will need to cross it. There was strategies put in place on our end to try to cross that as few times as possible while not creating other traffic problems within the neighborhood or surrounding area. Our intent and what we've done today is we've actually taken the 100-year floodplain identified on the FEMA flood mapping system and offset that 100 feet. And so our current bubble plan today does not show anything within that 100-foot area, when our hope is that will give us enough of a buffer to control development so that we do not cause any additional erosion, that we do not impact how that functions today. If anything, it'd be an added benefit to that drainage corridor system. Going hand in hand with that, that is why a number of detention facilities are currently proposed in that corridor, that being the low point on the site. That makes the most sense to detain and then ultimately release these flows from future development at historic rates to prevent erosion. Our goal and our hope at this time is we've actually over-detained and provided more detention ponds than would actually be needed, just to kind of set a conservative baseline as we get into more specific plans and not ever have to go back and add more in that area. In conjunction with that, as well, as you can see, is a number of open space and greenway corridors linked with the dotted red trail system. Right now, we have a number of 1-acre pocket parks scattered throughout the development, and then 2 more centralized, what we deem as like a larger community park of 5 acres in that first circle. And then up to the north, it's a little bit smaller of a 3-acre community park to serve the future high density and medium density areas within there. To the left are just a number of goals that we felt like we've accomplished and were important when considering this project in regards to the master plan. 2 specifically, I just want to speak to are the last 2 is 6.1 and 6.2, as these relate directly to the military operations adjacent to us. We feel that based on what we have proposed is in conjunction with primary and supporting land uses, and they are compatible with and in close proximity to the associated facilities adjacent to us, as well as maintaining and committing to the base and as alongside with El Paso County to keep them, the correspondence open to make sure that they are aware if future improvements are done, when those are happening, what is going on, just to ensure that nothing is impeding their base personnel from getting to the base. So here specifically are some items we did just want to address, and this goes into some of the detail that Colonel Barrios just had mentioned to you all and some of the questions you had given him as well. Before I kind of get into some of the specifics, I did just want to highlight, so as a part of the title work for this property, and that was then inherited by the landowner when they purchased the property in 2019, this federal government in the state of Colorado in 1990 put together a framework plan of understanding, hey, we understand that development could occur out here. We need to start figuring out ways to put fail-safes and provisions in place so that it's done strategically. And I feel like they did a good job. One of the first within this area, so that red box, just for reference, that is about a half mile from the southern property line of Schriever Air Force Base. So every single one of these provisions that are listed in this exchange agreement cover this whole area. The first being that no structures allowed in this area can ever exceed 45 feet in height. That's structures, antennas, anything that's vertically protruded out of the ground can never exceed that height limit. The second one, and I feel is the most important, and Colonel Barrios had touched on it in terms of their critical missions and what they have to do on the base, is they also have oversight and purview within specific standards in this agreement to review and approve certain electronic devices that could be placed within this area. Again, hopefully providing them a level of comfort that they do have the oversight to manage and control what is put in this in terms of that to not interfere with electronic communications. The third item that's also listed in this agreement is for every 5 acres of land, 1 acre is allowed to be vertically developed. So if you were to break out this whole mixed use pods into 5 acres, for every 5, only 1 can be developed. Again, kind of going back to reinforcing that efficient land uses, preserving open space, that is already agreed upon is run in perpetuity with this land forever. The last one, and it's currently what we're in now, they just identified it as a master plan review. I'm assuming back in 1990, there was not a notification process put in place at that time. And so they wanted to ensure that no matter what happens in and around the base, they had oversight to review and make sure that these plans conform with the other listed agreements and easements within the property. And based on this just conceptual land and what we're currently planning today, our teams feel comfortable that we're not in violation of any of those items listed in there. And we have the foresight, if we were to move forward with this and continue to think about and make sure that we don't propose something that will be detrimental to the Space Force Base operations. Outside of this exchange agreement, there's just a couple other alternate additional provisions and considerations that we made. The open space buffer to the Tierra Vista community has already been touched on, but Mr. Markowitz, I know you did ask about egress to and from that neighborhood on our property within the title work. And again, something that we have committed to the base that will not go away and we will continue to monitor later on down the road. They do have an alternative egress route for emergency evacuations through our property. And so that will continue to be monitored on our end as we get into more refined plans, just to make sure that that is done in conjunction with the base and nothing's going to be prohibiting them from using that if they ever needed to do it. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon Wilson with SM Rocha.
Check. Hey, good morning, County Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. My name is Brandon Wilson. I'm a traffic engineer with SM Rocha. We're a local company located at 6 Tejon Street in Colorado Springs. We're the traffic engineering consultants who prepared the master traffic study as part of this sketch plan application. The traffic impact study was prepared in accordance with the county's engineering criteria manual. It's been submitted to the county for their review and approval. The traffic study was also submitted to CDOT as a referral agency for their review and approval. At the sketch plan level, our traffic study only identifies major roadway improvements, such as needed roadway widenings, classifications, and intersection geometry and control. I think that county engineering staff, Brett Deltz, did a great job of kind of summarizing the impacts of traffic here. But just to reemphasize, our preliminary analysis suggests that both State Highway 94 and Enoch Road should be improved from a 2-lane roadway to 4-lane roadways to support future traffic. Additionally, all of the conceptual access drives that are shown onto Enoch Road and State Highway 94 are expected to be controlled by traffic signals and will have their own dedicated turn lanes. We hear the neighbors' concerns for speeding and traffic and safety. We feel at a minimum those turn lanes will at least mitigate some of those issues for cars turning on and off of the roads against high-speed vehicles. But those concerns can be further investigated with later stages of development. I just want to emphasize that our traffic study has not yet been approved as it continues to go through county and CDOT reviews. But the full list of improvements needed to support future traffic remains unknown at this time, but will be determined with later stages of development. So with that, I remain available should y'all have any traffic-related questions, and thank you again.
Any questions? No, great, thank you.
So wrapping up our presentation, we did just want to touch upon the water master plan and which region we fall in. As previously mentioned, we are within the Cherokee Metropolitan District service area. Throughout this process, not only with coordination with Schriever, CDOT, and other outside agencies, we have been working and meeting with Cherokee representatives to start figuring out and producing initial plans on how we could eventually service this part of the property from their current existing operations today. I have another slide right after this that kind of blows up the graphics because I know that's kind of a little bit harder to see. We just tried to want to make sure to capture the scale, more importantly, the existing hatched area at the bottom, which is the existing wastewater treatment facility. And in June of last year, we did get a signed letter of intent and will serve from between the developer and Cherokee, again, outlining provisions and considerations that both parties must do in order to ultimately serve this property. Also within that is the need and the recognition that a replacement plan needs to be a component of that design to ensure that renewable water resources are available at a later date to continue to provide for the current users of Cherokee as well as the future users that would be living in our subdivisions.
Excuse me, are you in the Metro District now in their
No.
compounds? Okay.
No.
That's what I thought. Thanks.
Our current plan right now, our preliminary design that we've been working with the district on, and we'll look to present some of this more specifically if this were to move forward, is a new water transmission line running parallel to the existing one north of Highway 94 today. At this time, too, I just want to reiterate that based on our different designs and what we're looking at today, we are not going to be impacting anything that's currently serving the base. If you see to the left over there, the darker pink line that's arrowed and then the lighter cyan blue, those are the existing services to the base today. And we are going to be staying far away from all of that just to make sure that those are not altered in impact or any way with our designs. The proposed water design, after it is linked up off of the new line north of Highway 94, the intent is it to follow to those collector major roadway systems that we had previously shown on the sketch plan. You can expect as those continue to evolve and shift, the water line itself would continue to follow those patterns as well. And then in terms of water or wastewater services, our intent is to, through a series of force mains and via lift stations in our property, even outside the phase 1 boundary, trying to keep those improvements as much as we can within the property that we control today, getting down to that wastewater treatment facility. So you can see based on this current design, about half of our planned design is actually going to be currently within property we own. And then there will be a whole component of working with adjacent landowners to the south on obtaining the necessary easements that would be required to get down to that wastewater treatment facility that exists today. I know Mr. Hauser had this, but I just wanted to close out with, again, the review criteria summary for a sketch plan approval within El Paso County. And thank you for your time this morning and consideration on this project. Our team remains available for any questions that you may have.
Questions? Mr. Markowitz?
Yeah, to go back to the wetland area, you mentioned the overpasses, you mentioned detention ponds. Is there intention to, I don't know what the water flow is like now, but is there any intention to riffraff it or anything to mitigate the flow? Or are you just planning on leaving it natural and having the detention ponds do that job?
Yes, the intent right now is to do that. Our ecologist on the project, Dan Maynard with Bristlecone Ecology, has submitted an application with the Army Corps of Engineers to get a jurisdictional determination on some of these areas identified. We are currently waiting on that feedback to come back from them to get an idea, but that will definitely help influence if any additional measures need to be taken within that corridor. But today we feel certain that it won't be jurisdictional, and what we're proposing is the best alternative and route forward to preserve that as a unique landform to the site.
Okay. And then, and maybe I missed it in your presentation because you said you addressed these mixed use areas that are adjacent to the border of Schriever Space Force. What type, and you mentioned the 45-foot height and certain limitations on electronics. I don't know how you do that other than say, hey, no cell phone towers. But what type of mixed use is anticipated? Like just what types of things are we talking about? Mixed use, there going to be more parks, or is it going to be, what are we talking about here?
So the intent is it could be a number of the uses that are already proposed elsewhere in the plan as others as well. So it could be office, it could be additional commercial services, it could be big box, it could be retail.
Okay. So if you're talking about putting a big box store, putting a Walmart over there, okay, how are you, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever based on where the traffic is going to flow. Because someone that's going to Walmart in that mixed use area adjacent to the base is going to have to drive through the neighborhood. There's Enoch Road, but they're still basically driving through the neighborhood. So that type of intensive use, it doesn't compute.
Yeah, and it's likely that heavy of a use, a Walmart, a King Soopers would not be looking to even go.
But you're not saying no.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Mr. Moraes?
Thank you. Going back to that 1990 agreement, you listed in general electronic devices limitations. Is there more specific than that? Does it kind of go in depth of?
Yes, it gives parameters. There's 6 different parameters in terms of electronic interference that they have to comply with. I don't want to sit here and pretend that I have any knowledge of what those are, what could be done with it.
Right.
But yes, there are specific listed.
Okay. And then the second question, in that legal description box, the area that's displayed, how many acres is that? Mr. Manager?
I would say, so in total, we have 521 acres of mixed use. That encompasses probably 80% of that. So roughly 480 to 500 acres is within that area.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Markovich?
Regarding the electronic agreement in 1990, the stuff they had in 1990 has nothing to do with the stuff that we have now. Has that agreement been updated? Have those parameters been altered based on what's going on today with our technology?
So as a component in this agreement, the base is the only party involved in the agreement that can alter any current provisions within it. We as the developer cannot do that. So that can be assessed and looked at by the base to see if provisions need to be incorporated in it to now because of different technologies 35 years later.
So is that 1990 agreement encompassing the whole property? Because we had talked about a 2-mile perimeter.
It's
You're talking about just that area.
yes. So as a part of this agreement, there is a specific legal description that encompasses the area, and that's that area.
So if the Space Force comes over and says, hey, we've got some top secret stuff and we're not going to allow any electronic anything in that area, then that's just it. They decide, they alter the agreement. It's unilateral. You can't do anything with that area that has anything to do with electronics or housing electronics or any of that kind of stuff.
They could decide to alter that to adjust the specific requirements to the electronic interference.
And they can do it unilaterally.
Yes, for this area. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You have something? Mr. Trowbridge?
Thank you. I guess I want to follow up on this mixed use stuff. I'm concerned that you didn't seem to put more effort into perhaps putting low density development down there, knowing that you had these limitations, and then put maybe more of the mixed use uncertainty stuff more in the center of the development. So, and as you point out in your letter of intent, mixed use is not identified as a recommended land use in the master plan for this type of area. It's not prohibited, of course, but it just seems concerning to me as I was reading through this. So could you elaborate some more? I mean, I know that you're going to have to come back with a preliminary plan and so on and so forth, but we all know that the sketch plan, the earlier we talk about the stuff in the process, the more able we are to shift and adjust focus and get some of these concerns out of the way. So thank you.
Yes. Yeah, and just real quick, so that component of that letter of intent is just because it's still being worked on and being incorporated in the LDC. We can't come in and say it's recommended in the master plan because it's not codified yet. So that was that part. The reason also for the mixed use, and this goes back to an in-person meeting we actually had with Schriever Base Force personnel here in this building with El Paso County, is we felt, based on what they had kind of outlined as concerns and considerations for this area, is not providing residential, because then you're offering something that 24/7 someone could be in there that you have to worry about. Our hope was actually that we could provide office, other services, retail, that folks are there from 8 to 5, 8 to 6 in the morning, and the majority of the time they're out of there. And so then it's a more refined time period of level of concern, as opposed to filling this whole thing with residential lots, and then you have to keep tabs on every single one of them constantly.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Whitney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks very much. I realize this is impossible, but I'm thinking about timing. You said it'll be several years before anything's built on this property. Do you have a sense of what several years means? 3 like several, or 5, or what's your thinking?
Tough. Not 30. I would say it's more in the realm of a 5 to 10 year gap.
And the only reason I'm asking is I'm thinking about their Colonel's good presentation about them getting the study done.
Yes, sir.
And it may be a couple of years before the study is done. It would sound like there will be time, once the study is done, to refine some of the conceptual ideas in this plan to make it work.
Yes, sir. And also, it's worth considering too. I mean, it's not probable or likely that we would ever come in the first go on this and develop right next to the base. We all know that in order for any of this to be successful, we need houses. So we would probably look at other northern parts of the community if we were to move forward with prelim plans. And it wouldn't make sense to actually come down here and that's where we start. But the time frame is hard to answer because it really relies back on to working with Cherokee and how quickly we can get agreements and further our agreements already in place with them to figure out how we can make this all work. And so that's when I revert back to more horizontal design, figuring that out, because if we can't get that to work, then vertical can't happen anyway. So that will help refine the timeline of when this could actually be possible.
I appreciate that. And I just wanted to, I was just building a little bit on Mr. Trowbridge's good question, because the problem is, we all know that the sketch plan is the first step. We haven't seen zoning, we haven't seen preliminary plans, we haven't seen anything. And there's comfort in the notion that, well, those are down the road, so we'll figure those out when we get to those.
Yeah.
In the meantime, possibly a plan has been approved that really does sort of set broad parameters. And the earlier we can get at those, instead of having a big fight at the preliminary plan stage, the better. And that's the reason I was asking about timing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Drew Balsick with Flying Horse Development. I'd like to add a little context to that. The 2 to 3 years is planning with Cherokee. If you go back to that utility map, it'll take us that long to get pipes in the ground, get water hot, before you can even pull a building permit. But that 2 to 5 year time frame, serious money is going to be spent while we figure that out. So I want to keep everybody in perspective. Today, we want to see if we have a project. That's part of this whole process. I wrote down a couple of notes. The mixed use, we don't have somebody in tow today. We don't know. That's going to evolve over the next 20, 30 years. Could be support for Schriever. It could be commercial. But as we sit here today, none of us can answer that. The storm, I don't know how many of you have seen the site. The wetlands out there are minimal to none. It's a sand creek. We're going to have to fix it. Today, nobody's done any stormwater out there, none. We're going to detain it all on site and turn it loose at a historical. So all that'll start the whole area. The detention ponds, as you mentioned, are going to be overbuilt right now. We're going to have some sense of place, live, work, play area. This is a large project. There's a lot more to come after this. And so whenever Blaine is answering questions that he doesn't know, we really don't have anybody in tow. What we do know is it's going to take rooftops to get this thing started. We all know that, right? We got to build houses. The electronic, gosh, my computer got hacked last week. I think they were from wherever, but they probably weren't next door to me. That's going to evolve as it has. The exchange agreement, I will tell you all that the government did a great job of buffering Schriever from day one. If you look at the overall, all the critical stuff is well off the property lines in the center. They pushed the residential out. They did the exchange agreement that makes a lot of sense today. But a 2-mile no build, in my mind, makes little to no sense. Or how do you pay for that, right? How do you make that landowner whole? So a couple of things to think about there. Again, I hear some about the densities. We always maximize the densities, mostly for utilities, right? We never want to have not enough utilities. In my past experiences, we'll probably be closer to the 3,000 mark than we are to the 5,000 mark. That's just the way it is. It doesn't always fit by the time we get through with drainage and stormwater, roads, all of those things. Another thing that I heard this morning about the mixed use and traffic. doesn't mean we can't put more roads in that mixed use. There'll be more collection and more traffic and more planning when those uses come up. And I'll close with, I just don't think we can wait 2 years for a study. We could be waiting a lot longer if we do that, right? And again, the exchange agreement contemplated development. I remember when Schriever Base came in, it was in economic times like we are today. And that thing was going to save Colorado Springs and saved a lot of jobs. Well, here 20, 30 years later, here we go. We're finally there. But that's how long these things take. And it's a long-range project. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? I had just one. What's the, on the suburban medium density, what kind of density is that per acre?
So the suburban low is from 1 dwelling unit to the acre up to 2.99. And then the suburban medium would be carrying on right at 3 up to 4.99. So both of the suburbans identified would be underneath that 5 acre threshold.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I have a question for staff.
Mr. Markowitz, go ahead.
Ben? On page 20 of 53 of the staff report, I'd like to talk a little bit about annexation, because it's been kind of in the news lately. You've got on this, can you pull this slide up? The key area map for areas likely to be annexed.
I don't think I had a slide with the map on it.
Oh, okay. So there's a map that's in our packet, and it has areas likely to be annexed, and there's light blue areas, almost all surrounding Schriever Space Force Base, except for to the south. How are these areas determined? Is this the county has determined, hey, we think Colorado Springs may be interested in these areas? Or is this Colorado Springs has said, our planning department thinks these are areas we will be interested in the future?
Looks like Mr. Hauser's looking at me for a little assistance. And I will tell you two things. I will tell you that these maps are from the most recent Euro Paso County Master Plan that was adopted. There was discussions at that time with the county planning department as to, or county and city planning departments as to what areas could potentially be annexed. However, right now, the city of Colorado Springs is going through a specific annexation plan update process. They are updating their maps for annexation. That process is not complete, and I cannot tell you if their process will change what their likely annexation areas will be. But we, at the time that this was done, took the information from the city and added it into our master plan. If that changes with the city's annexation plan, we would defer to that annexation plan because obviously the municipality drives the annexation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Kirkridge.
I was just going to point out that this map is an excerpt from the master plan. So it's not something that was created specifically for this.
Oh, yeah,
project.
absolutely.
Yeah. And
It just,
the second
it just,
one, Ms. Harrington said, yeah, I was on the master plan working group, and yeah, we did do a lot of back and forth with various municipalities about annexation.
was Schriever included in that conversation?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all the military installations in the area were involved in the master planning. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, any other comments, questions? All right, we'll first of all, does anybody want to take a break
Yeah,
quick?
let's take a break.
Okay,
before we-
let's take
testimony.
10 minutes. Come back at 10:35. Thanks. take our seats and we'll get going again. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. Now is the time that we have comment from the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this item today? Anyone online? Seeing none. Anyone here would like to speak against this item today? Yes, sir. Come on up. If you would sign in and then give us your name when you start speaking.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Edward Davis. I live at 18245 State Highway 94. I live within the Rolling Hills Ranch Estates, approximately a half a mile from the east edge of this potential new development. My major concern, and I expressed this when I went to the invitational meeting they had out there on May the 1st, my major concern is the traffic. Highway 94, my parents moved me out there in 1969. I've been here, there, wherever, going to college, so on and so forth. But we heard back when I was in high school at Ellicott High School in the 70s that CDOT promised and planned to take and build Highway 94 from Colorado Springs to past Ellicott into a 4-lane highway. That was in the mid-70s. We still have yet to have any of it developed other than a couple of passing zones that are out there. At the same time, the CDOT promised that the Highway 24 corridor would also be 4-lane from Colorado Springs to Lyman. It still has not yet to be done. Now, with this potential of this new development starting out there, and they're wanting to start it soon, and I understand that they've got a major investment in the property that they need to get roofs and households started to build out there. My east-facing window out of my bedroom faces out looking east towards Ellicott, Yoder, and Brush. And the line of traffic every morning, starting at between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning, it's just one solid stream of headlights as people have moved east, migrated east to take and get away from the city a little bit. And then at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, it's the same situation. They built 2 passing zones, one going up Mile Hill, right out by the dump out there. They built one westbound just within the last 5 years through Corral Valley. But you can't hardly pass anybody there because every time anybody gets to that passing zone, their right foot goes to the floor and they're doing 70 or 80 miles an hour. The Highway 94 corridor has become one of the largest accident locations in this whole state. Therefore, all of us residents that live within those zip codes have the highest auto insurance rates of any place in the state. Every morning that I drive to work, I'm meeting traffic of people going to Schriever. I believe in our military. God bless our military. But at the same token, the contractors and the people that are coming out there, 95% of them are in a vehicle by themselves. And there's thousands of cars traveling either out 94, coming down Curtis Road, coming up Curtis Road, going on to Irwin Road or Enoch Road. It's all you can do to take and make a left-hand turn off of 94 onto Curtis Road as you're going to work in the morning between 6 and 7 a.m. I know CDOT is still doing a study on this. They were doing a study on it back in the 70s, and nothing still has yet been done. It was made an announcement here within the last couple of years that the Air Force, because of the increased growth of Schriever, due to the increased growth, that they were going to take and help pay with El Paso County to take and widen out Curtis Road, both northbound, southbound off of 94, Bradley Road, Stapleton, Judge Orr, wherever these folks are coming from out of the city of Colorado Springs. It's been a couple of years. I have yet to see anything else posted about this study being done of trying to widen these roads. The roads are dangerous. We got idiots that are out there driving 94, doing 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, passing cars on hills, on double yellow lines, and no passing zones. No consideration for the other people that live out in that area. And unfortunately, a lot of them are mothers. I've seen them pass me. Mothers driving with kids in the back seat and car seats. Here I'm doing 65 or 70 miles an hour and they're passing me doing 80 or 90 miles an hour. My major concern is I think the roads need to be fixed well before we get started on these developments. I know they're not starting tomorrow, but within a couple of years, things could start to happen. And I don't foresee any changes being made to 94 until that's done. I realize it's not the county's responsibility. It's the CDOT's responsibility. But at the same token, things need to be done on Curtis Road, northbound, southbound off of 94 and out Bradley Road. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thanks so much for coming in. Anyone else like to speak against this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Go ahead, Ms. Jack.
This may be for staff, but I was under the impression that 94 was the next project on the PPRTA. Is that correct?
Brett Diltz, El Paso County Engineering. With CDOT being, or Colorado 94 being a CDOT facility, they are not a part of PPRTA. Pikes Peak Regional Transportation Authority, CDOT is not party to that. So that would be outside of El Paso County's purview.
So there is no progress on that?
I don't know anything about the CDOT progress on that.
Okay, thank you.
I might have a little bit of context. Brandon Wilson, traffic engineer with SM Rocha. When we prepared this master study, we did research with the Pikes Peak Transportation Regional Authority, as well as researching CDOT corridor assessments. And you are correct that CDOT currently does not have any established plans to improve State Highway 94. Neither does PPRTA, which means that improvements to the highway will likely be driven by developments.
Great, thanks. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, if the traffic is as bad as the gentleman indicated, the construction traffic is going to be a serious problem. So how do we get the state to consider expediting 94's improvements before we start seeing cement trucks and everything else running up and down an overly burdened highway?
That is a great question. I don't know how you can get CDOT to expedite their timelines. We work with CDOT day in and day out. This region is CDOT on a lot of multiple projects, and everything just kind of gets put into a queue. So I don't have an answer for you on timelines from CDOT's perspective.
Thank you. For
I apologize.
sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yep, that's
All right, discussion on this topic.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You could ask the applicant if they have any further
Oh, right.
rebuttal.
Yeah, any rebuttal from the applicant regarding the? No, none. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trowbridge. Any discussion? Mr. Markowitz?
I really would like to have seen the study that Space Force mentioned completed before we do something like this. I mean, I hate to tell private landowners what to do with their property, but in this case, I mean, I think national security takes precedence. And we're just looking at phase one right here. You illustrated phase two also. I mean, that basically surrounds Schriever Air Force Base, Space Force Base on two sides. If the Carmen line would have been accepted by voters, and it was overwhelmingly voted down on Tuesday, like 80%, 80 to 20. And one of the biggest reasons for rejection was the security of Schriever Air Force Base. I mean, they tried to promote it as, oh, this is a great thing for Schriever, but I don't know how that argument actually went. So from a compatibility standpoint, I don't see how this even vaguely meets compatibility with Schriever Space Force Base. And I've been on the Colorado Springs Planning Commission for 6 years, and I've been on this board for 2 2. And I don't think I've ever said this. I think this is a horrible idea. So I will be voting against.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Moraes?
Yeah, you know, I see this as a balance, you know, one, providing housing and commercial near the base, for the population, but the balance is versus the encroachment. And what I'm concerned with is, with approval of this, would the county kind of shoot itself in the foot? And when I say that is, we've seen other areas where urban encroachment has actually closed bases down. Like, so there was a Williams Air Force Base in the Mesa, Arizona area. It doesn't exist anymore. There was, look at Lowry up in Denver. Again, it gets redeveloped, but doesn't exist anymore. Those missions, those federal money kind of goes away. There was Georgia Air Force Base in California, Myrtle Beach. All these bases kind of get bracked away because that mission set can't be accomplished at that area. And so all of a sudden now all those employees, and again, land gets redeveloped, but all of a sudden now your communities are scrambling to find a new mission. And this being set aside with the environmental factors, that's what I'm kind of worried about. And, the federal government loves spending money. So if this then becomes an unviable area for a mission, the federal government will go spend money on another base and move that to somewhere else. And so that's one of my concerns here is, this gets approved. Will the county kind of be going, hey, it's great, it's bringing in tax dollars and all that, but that kind of windfall end if all of a sudden now it kind of moves out and maybe the redevelopment, can't happen in that area. And to the private landowner, you're buying land next to a military installation. It's like buying land at the end of a runway. It's, what you're getting into. There were some, a 1990 agreement put into place that does some limitations. I mean, I look, there's no electronic, or the electronic device, it's unilateral agreement. If they say right now, hey, you can't put a lift station right there on the border, which is on that plan right now with the water division, that's all run by electronics. It's all SCADA stuff and stuff that, puts out electronic, signals and stuff. And they go, okay, that's done. Well, now all of a sudden is that affected? So I think there's a lot more unknowns with this plan at this point than knowns. And like we said before, somebody said before, is as soon as you get that sketch plan in place, every time a developer comes back to the rezoning, they go, well, you guys approved the sketch plan. Yeah. And this is what the sketch plan said. So why are you saying no to the rezoning right now? It keeps getting pointed back. We see that time and time again when all of a sudden the underlying assumptions and conditions kind of change, and maybe our thought process kind of changes on, compatibility with stuff. But the applicant keeps pointing back, well, hey, back 5-7 years ago, you said this sketch plan was good, so we should get our rezoning. And so that's where I'm really hesitant on approving this project at this point. But I understand there is a balance with providing that commercial and that housing that's out in that area of Shriver, and it may be getting those people who are driving from miles away, get them closer to the base, and maybe that traffic kind of situation kind of dissipates on the outside of the world, or at least going to go into the east, maybe to the west again to the town will remain the same. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Jack?
I just wonder at that mixed use block, if that couldn't be incorporated more as a buffer or a larger buffer or something that would, or why isn't housing there versus commercial? Because then there wouldn't be the concerns about the electronic stuff and that sort of thing. But again, it's a sketch plan and they could redo this, right?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I tend to think that the buffering with the mixed use is probably the best way to do it. It's a more natural buffer created by the existing use of Shriver. I also think that the 1990 agreement has the components built in that reduces the density at the, what was it, 5,000?
50,000.
50,000 per 5 acres. That's probably very similar to an RR2 density when you really started to do the math on it. So, and then I also think that a 2-mile buffer is so restrictive that it kills effectively any project. I mean, the landowner has sold the property, whatever they were doing, probably ranching, was okay use at one time, but now the new property owner certainly has the right to pursue this concept. And that's my thought.
Great. Mr. Trowbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as I stated earlier, I was a little concerned about the mixed use. I felt that was a little loose in terms of what was there, but I appreciate the applicant sharing with us their thoughts about the restrictiveness that's needed there. And to Ms. Jack's point, they don't want residential in that area because of the proximity to the base and the idea that somebody could be there with nefarious intent, where you'd have to be trying to monitor electronic signals and stuff in that area constantly. So that edge is going to be a tough thing for them to develop, and they've got, if we go forward with this plan, they've got time to work on that, and I believe that they're working hard with the base to do that. Hopefully, the base will get their study money and we'll be able to get that study done in a reasonable amount of time here in the next couple of years, and that can feed into the next phase of this project. So I'm in favor of this because to the gentleman's point about traffic being closer to the base, my first trip out to Schriever was back in the 80s when it was just a hole in the ground. So I remember what it was like out there, and I worked out there for several years, and I know what the traffic is like going and coming from the base. And the gentleman's right, 94 is a very dangerous road at times. So hopefully CDOT can get that done. Anyway, long story short, I'll be in favor.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Anyone? I'll throw mine in. I think it seems a little early, and there's so many unknowns right now. We have to support our military base here and do everything we can to make sure that they're happy with it. As Mr. Murray says, these things can go away. I think it was the 90s when the shuttle disasters happened, and this base almost went away at that point. So we have to do what we can to make sure they're happy. And I think there's probably ways to do these things, but having this mixed use right up against the property boundary, to me, is very concerning. The 50,000 feet per 5 acres could be a 50,000 foot warehouse that some Chinese company buys and puts some kind of jamming stuff in there that we never know about until they use it. We've had presentations from folks that are trying to protect military bases around the country from things like this being right on the property line. Again, there's we've got that balance of private property versus the public property, and we try and be sensitive to that. But I think I'd love to see this report come out. Hopefully, it can come out sooner than later on the Space Force base. My other concern is that we do our the master plan for a reason, and so often the proposals that come in here are far beyond what we've put in the master plan, and in my mind, the densities here are far beyond what the master plan called for. So I think there needs to be some more time spent between the developer and the Space Force base, and come back with a plan that might work better for everyone. So I'll be voting against it. Anyone else? Mr. Trowbridge, did you want to say something?
You ready for a motion?
Okay, yeah, I'd entertain a motion.
All right. Mr. Chair, as regards agenda item 5A, file number SKP 242, the sketch plan for Flying Horse East Phase 1, I move we recommend approval in accordance with the attached resolution, and that this item be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration.
Second.
Thank you. Second by Ms. Jacks. Any other discussion? All right, take a vote. Mr. Markowitz.
Nay.
Mr. Smith.
Nay.
Mr. Trowbridge.
Aye.
Ms. Jack.
Aye.
Mr. Whitney.
No, and if I can make some comments when we're done, I will.
You bet. Mr. Byer.
Aye.
Mr. Moraes. Was that a nay?
Nay, sorry, my microphone was off.
And the chair votes nay, so this item, this proposal fails by a vote of 5-3.
Mr. Chair,
Yep. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
could I just make one quick
Sure,
comment?
Mr. Whitney, you're negative.
My apologies. This is a hard one, and I'm where Mr. Moraes is. My concern has always been the way the process works, and it's the way it's supposed to work, so I get it, but it always troubles me that a sketch plan comes in and it can be amorphous, and everybody understands that over the course of time, it'll get modified 55 times before you finally get something done. But you've created a green light for a project. And to Mr. Moraes' point, your mindset changes a little bit. Now you're looking at something that you said was basically okay in a conceptual sense. So you think about it differently. And I have that concern. So my concern is that the train leaves the station with the sketch plan and it's hard to get it back.
Agreed.
Mr.
Mr. Moraes, would you like to comment?
Yeah, just, I just want to point back, my vote really kind of took notes. I was trying to find the exact wording in the, really looking at this area, it's preserving the master plan talks about preserving open space and reducing impacts on the critical missions. And I don't think we have, in my mind, we don't have an answer is if that mixed use area, would preserve the open space and reduce impacts on the critical missions, performed at the base. And that's really was the key when I kind of point back to the master plan and look in the master plan of what it's kind of telling us to do.
Great.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Markowitz.
Excuse me, Mr. Whitney? Mr. Whitney, did you vote aye or nay?
Nay.
Okay, did you get that? Because I thought you said there were 3 in favor.
There were.
There were?
There were.
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, and 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, I apologize. Thank you.
Mr. Markowitz, do you have any comments on your negative vote?
It just, lending on some of the stuff that Mr. Moraes said, I mean, I was a kid when Peterson, Schriever were being done, and I would imagine that one of the reasons for Schriever being open in the first place is that Peterson got encroached on. They got surrounded by the city, and Peterson became obviously it's important in its connection to the Colorado Springs Airport and the runways, but I think what happened was they got encroachment. They decided, hey, we need to move more operations away from the general public, and so we're going to build Schriever out in the middle of nowhere. And projects like this and the Carmen line just kind of defeat that purpose. If we don't want to have these bases, keep encroaching. So, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Exactly what Mr. Moraes said. It's just, there's too much uncertainty at this time. I'd like to see a little more cohesion between the developer and with the Space Force base.
Great. Thanks. And I'll let my earlier comments stand. All right. Staff, is there anything else? Can I clarify? So our calendar shows 2 meetings in July and August. Didn't we say that we're only having 1 for the summer? Am I wrong with that?
Let me double check those meeting dates for you, sir.
Okay.
Well, I believe what they said last time was that there is no meeting on July 3rd, and then our next meeting is July 17th.
Okay. So we know that. We don't know about August yet?
I don't know that they announced. I think they did say something about only one.
Yeah, only one meeting in August was what they announced last time, but they can correct. But they announced only one meeting in August.
All right. So we'll plan on just 1 meeting in July on the 17th, and then you can tell us then what's going to happen with August.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It would appear that the two dates that we have for the rest of the summer is July 17th and August 7th.
August 7th.
August 7th, okay.
Yes, sir. The August 21st date was the one that was canceled.
Okay. And then, thank you. And then Mr. Whitney brought up the Colorado Springs Utilities Key Officials Tour, notes two different dates for the trip. One side says October 1st, the other side says October 12th. I think he thinks that October 12th is not a Wednesday.
It's not.
So if that can get cleared up, that would probably be helpful for whoever wants to sign up for that. All righty.
If any of you were interested in a tour like this, when I was on the City Planning Commission, they took us on a tour of the Southern Delivery System. We went all the way down to the Propo Reservoir, went into one of the giant tunnels, and it was fascinating to hear about how that process was going to allow, like one of the things they said it would allow is it would allow service on the two existing lines that are coming over the mountains, because those hadn't been serviced for a long time. So they needed to get water from the Arkansas up before they could close down a line to service it. So I found it fascinating when I had the opportunity to do it, I don't know, 6 years ago, or whatever it was. So I'd encourage, if you haven't gone to something like this, to go.
All right, thank you. All righty. Any other comments? All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.